Chad watched the end of the Nets and Bucks game on Saturday night. I'm not sure why.
Yeah, I was just going to say, what
I don't know why.
that?
Don't know why. But it does include some headlines with Kyrie Irving, who is still unable to play in home games for the Nets, despite New York and the new mayor there lifting the vaccine mandates across the city. And this impacts him because he is almost grandfathered into this rule where he's not able to play. He can practice, but he can't play because the public will interact with him. And I'm just like, I see this stuff and there's no common sense with this whatsoever. Last week, Eric Adams said that he's the mayor of New York, said he planned to roll back the vaccine mandate. Well, this has kept Kyrie from playing home games. Meanwhile, visitors who are unvaccinated can come in and play because they're leaving either immediately after or the next morning. And because Kyrie's main place of work is Brooklyn, he can't play in these home games because he's refused the vaccine. And even though these rules have changed, there's still a separate mandate that exists for the private sector, which includes Kyrie Irving.
So
how confusing is this for something so simple?
Just for consistency's sake, it makes no sense.
Absolutely. Or for common sense sake,
none of it makes
no sense.
Any sense. And Eric Adams saying, quote, "It would send the wrong message just to have an exception for one player when we're telling countless number of New York City employees, if you don't follow the rules, you won't be able to be employed. You have changed the rules over and over and over again. Change the rule that says you get fired if you don't get vaccinated. Boom. Done. Kyrie Irving plays. Everyone else keeps their job. You go back to life. I just solved the issue for you. The problem is this damn word that I don't ever want to use again after all this over. Optics. They don't want to look like they're admitting they were wrong when in fact they were wrong. And it's bothersome. And the mayor is saying, I want to see Kyrie Irving on the court like everyone else, but I can't. I got to follow the rules. I can't make an exception for one person. Change the rule that started this and get back to it. The city of New York would be for this. It's ridiculous. It's so crazy, Hutton, how they'll come back and say, well, we can't do this, and can't change this rule, but yet rules change constantly.
And they're lifting this March 7th, and he's still not eligible then based on the private sector, which restricts Irving from playing in home games, although he could enter. Here's the thing. He could go and watch a game unvaccinated at Barclays Center March 7th. He can't play in the game. Meanwhile, a visiting player has been able to play on that court all season, even if they're under the same guidelines that Kyrie Irving is under. That is just stupid. It's stupidity, and the people, the media, and everyone else that's backing this, idiots, along with the mayor and everyone else that's trying to say that they're within these guidelines. These guidelines are being lifted, and for whatever reason, if it's optics, if it's because he refused the vaccine to begin with, and he's stayed by that the whole time, it's just bizarre. Carson Wentz was ripped to shreds and then set out 5 days because the NFL changed their protocol for unvaccinated players. Meanwhile, the NBA should step in and work with the city of New York to enable one of their best players or any player to play based on the rules. They've been under these guidelines all season, and now that they're lifted, they're pointing to another rule that will keep him from playing for Brooklyn. It's bizarre. You just shake your head at it because they're making up this stuff as they go.
Lift the mandates. Just
Absolutely.
Lift the mandate. I'm watching Saturday Night Live over the weekend, and SNL does a sketch where it was clearly a New Yorker type sketch where they're at dinner and they're all slowly admitting that none of this makes sense. And it's all their heads exploding as they realize, maybe some people on this other side of this were right all along about this when you look at what happened in England and when you look at what happened with mask mandates versus those that didn't have mask mandates. There wasn't a big difference. And if SNL is willing to joke about this based on what most of their comedy consists of, I think it's time we all admit the tide has turned on this and we can all erase bad decision making.
And again, it goes against whatever policy they had in place to begin with, the fact that another team can roll in there with 5 starters unvaxxed if they so choose and play.
Yeah, it's just the lack of common sense.
What was your experience with the Nets?
Oh, so I placed a little money on the money line for the Nets when they were down 8 against Milwaukee, not knowing at the time that Kevin Durant was not playing for the Nets. And watched
He's returning soon.
Kyrie Irving was masterful in that game. A lot of what I saw was from the free throw line late in the game, hitting free throws to keep Brooklyn ahead in the game. But he single-handedly led the Nets on the road against the defending champion Bucks to a win. So it was an impressive performance from a guy who can't play his home games. I kept thinking, I'm like, it's got to be odd when you join the team in Milwaukee, right? He's clearly good with his teammates. I mean, there's no issues there. He plays well with them. He knows what to do. He's still a very, very good player, but he can lead the Nets to victory in Milwaukee, but not at the Barclays Center.